coats. The pattern enlisted man's frock coat worn in the Civil War was introduced by General Order Number 3, issued March 24, 1858. The style was influenced by the French tunique, and the coat was primarily for dress purposes. The 1861 regulations describe the frock coat as follows, quote, "The uniform coat for all enlisted footmen shall be a single-breasted frock of dark blue cloth, made without pleats, with a skirt extending 1/2 the distance from the top of the hip to the bend of the knee. 1 row of 9 buttons on the breast, placed at equal distances. Stand-up collar to rise no higher than to permit the chin to turn freely over it, to hook in front at the bottom, and then to slope up and backward at an angle of 30 degrees on each side. Cuffs pointed according to pattern, and to button with 2 small buttons at the underseam. Collar and cuffs edged with a cord or welt of cloth as follows, to wit, scarlet for artillery, sky blue for infantry, yellow for engineers, crimson for ordnance and hospital stewards. On each shoulder, a metallic scale according to pattern. Narrow lining for skirt of the coat of the same color and material as the coat. Pockets in the folds of the skirts with 1 button at each hip to range with the lowest buttons on the breast. No buttons at the ends of the pockets." Unquote. Facing colors are in the form of a cord or a welt. A welt is a piece of cloth folded over and stitched into a seam or onto the coat. A cord is formed by twisting 2 strands into 1 cord measuring 1/16 of an inch in diameter. Like shells, frock coats were made from broadcloth in the same 4 standard sizes. In 1864, 218,288 frock coats were issued. The low price paid for these coats during the war was $4.08, but inflation pushed that to $14.67 by war's end. Frock coats were stiff and formal, and not seen as commonly in the field. One Indianan wrote, "On the first march, the dress coats disappeared rapidly. They were recklessly flung away to lighten knapsacks and ease aching shoulders, or were traded off for chickens and other eatables." This is an infantry corporal's frock coat. From the bottom of the collar to the waistline, it measures 18 1/4 inches, and it has an overall length of 35 1/4 inches. The sleeve measures 34 1/2 inches long and 4 7/8 inches wide at the sleeve hand. The collar is 8 1/4 inches in length and is 1 3/4 inches high at the rear and 1 1/2 inches high at the front. The waist measures 36 inches. The skirt is 34 inches wide. The breast measurement at the 4th button is 40 inches, and the width at the elbow is 7 inches. Buttons measure 5 inches apart for the hip buttons, 2 1/4 inches apart for the front buttons, and 1 3/4 inches apart for the sleeve buttons. Note the profile of the sleeve. It is widest at the elbow and narrowest at the wrist. As can be seen, the front edge of the sleeve is straight, while the back edge balloons. This is a characteristic of Civil War period uniforms. The armpit is narrower than the elbow and is usually gathered. Note the hook and the eye on the bottom of the collar. The angle of the collar opening is supposed to be 60 degrees, 30 degrees on each side. Note the regimental number 1 on either side of the collar. The use of regimental numbers is mentioned in General Order Number 31 of June 12, 1851. General Order 31 states, quote, "On both sides of the collar, near the front, the number of the regiment in yellow metal 1 inch long." Unquote. There is no mention of collar insignia to designate regiments in the 1861 regulations. By 1861, regimental insignia were placed on the hat and cap. This is an artillery musician's frock coat. The 9 rows of 3/8 inch worsted lace designate a musician of heavy artillery. The facings on the cuffs and collar are red cord. This is an engineer sergeant's frock. This coat is faced on the collar and cuffs with yellow welts. Remember, a welt is a separate piece of cloth folded over and stitched onto the coat. The sergeant chevron in yellow designates the engineer corps. Note that the cavalry and engineers had the same color facings. They are differentiated by the cut. This is an infantry corporal's frock. The sleeve on this coat is torn, revealing the inner layers of material used in constructing the coats. In this case, burlap-like material and padding.